Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. I'm Rhonda if you're new here. Today is a big day on the homestead. We are processing meat chickens today. I am going to make a video about it. I am going to be very particular in what I share. So if this is not your type of video, please do not comment. Please do not be rude. Just stop watching or keep scrolling. We are a farm-to-table homestead. We grow food and process it. We raise meat chickens and process them. We do turkeys and process them. So we wanted to share our experience and how we go about doing this process. I know there are hundreds of other homesteads that do this kind of stuff. So I thought I would take you along on our very first meat processing experience at this homestead. These are the meat chickens. We also have 5 white heritage breed turkeys. They will go to freezer camp on a different day. We had a total of 42. We lost 2 of them. Scott processed 10 or 12 or 13 a couple of weekends ago. So now we are down to right around 30 chickens that we are going to process today. He has his dad here helping, and I'm going to have him walk you through the setup before the action starts. I will let you know in case you want to just kind of scroll through. I will let you know play by play.
So once we bring the meat chickens from the trackers over here, we have the culling station set up. Essentially, we have a couple of kill cones that will insert the chicken in here upside down. I do breast side out. I've already sprayed these down with an oil. I sprayed down the cones and the buckets. What that does is the blood won't stick as bad when we go for cleanup. It doesn't affect the process. I made this little contraption here to about it's easy to work with at this level. Once the chicken is completely dispatched, we'll move over to a scalding station. I run this just a turkey cooker with a propane tank. I do have some Dawn dishwashing soap on the inside, and right now it's at about 150 degrees. I will immerse the chicken in there for about 1 minute, and what that will do is soften the feathers. From there, I immediately come over to the Yardbird chicken plucker. So there's water that runs into it. I turn the switch on, I set the bird in there, and then it'll spin around and it removes majority of the feathers. Sometimes it removes them all.
Yep,
sometimes
a good part of it.
After that, we move over to the tables, and then that's where the guys will be, removing the head and the entrails and preparing them. Once the basic bird has been gutted and done, we move to the ice bath. And then, so we have just some buckets set up with ice that we've made ahead of time. So the ice we have a big ice maker that we make ahead of time. So,
and this is what we put the processed chicken in here before bagging.
Yep, we want to keep them cool. So once they're all cooled off, because that's the biggest thing for spoilage, is the chicken will, retain that heat. So we want to get them ice cold as quickly as possible. And then once we get them all in here ice cold, then if we want to keep them whole or we want to cut them up, dismember them into like breasts and thighs and legs, and then we'll do that at that time, then end up vacuum sealing it and putting it in the freezer at the end of the day.
Awesome. Okay, so now the next part that I'm going to show you guys, the chicken has been culled and there's going to be a mess. So if you don't want to see this part, either skip through or stop watching.
All right, so the chicken has expired. I'm going to move it from here to the scalder. The temperature of the scalder or the water in here is 150 degrees. I'm going to set my timer. Because if you go over a minute, I've found that it'll start cooking the skin and softening it. So that way when you put it in the plucker, it'll tear the skin sometimes. So I found that 150 degrees at 1 minute works really, really well. And all I'm doing right now is I'm just kind of twisting it back and forth. And what this is doing is just getting the water under the feathers and stuff like that. There is soap in this. I think I mentioned it earlier.
Dawn dish soap, yep.
Yeah, and what that does is just helps take away. You can see how dirty these birds are, and they get I mean, that scrubs them up a lot as well. But it helps take all the oil and fat and dirt and stuff out of there.
And you set the timer for 1 minute, and you just swishing it back and forth for 1 minute.
Yep.
And the temp of the water is
150 degrees.
150.
The range can be anywhere from like 145 to just over 150, and that all works really, really well. And then once we get close to a minute here, which we're about there, we're at 59. So I will pick it up and just drain the extra water in here. Now we just put them in there.
Can I see it?
Yep, so majority of the feathers are off. Like I said, there will always be a few here and there. Sometimes they do, every single one comes off. But that's the bird right there. Just go through and pluck the few little feathers off that are left on the bird. This, for the most part, is pretty, there's not a lot on here. And they pluck out super easy at this point. All right, so that's my first step. So now I'm gonna go start to remove all the entrails on the inside. I'll start by removing the head first. We don't need that. And then I always start at the top. I'm gonna loosen the esophagus, and there's a bunch of glands up in there. So what I will do is I just start on the outside here. You know, this is your, basically this is your trachea and esophagus. So this is your trachea, the harder one, and this kind of softer tube right there is your esophagus. So I'll just start by cutting the membrane and just kind of loosening that up a little tiny bit. And I go down as far as I can from the top side here. This is the trickiest part for me. It's just a slimy process, so it's hard to get a hold of sometimes. But again, these are those scalpel blades that I bought. These are Haviland ones. So now I've gone down to about 3/4 of the way down the neck. So the next step will be, I just make an incision across the top of the neck. So I just kind of grab the skin and pull it open. So there's going to be a couple things I'm going to look for here. Again, you can see the trachea and esophagus right here. So I'm gonna start to loosen that up. But the biggest thing is, as the bird is facing away breast up, on the right side is what's called the crop. This is where they'll store their food. So that's like it's like a big balloon. You can kind of see it right here. You can see the edge of it right there. It's this guy right here. So that has to come out. And this is it's super slippery. It's just challenging to get a hold of it. So I just gently cut, and that's where a really sharp knife or a razor blade comes into handy. And I'll kind of start to grab it and pull. You can kind of see it pulling out now. But again, it's super slimy. So for me, there it comes. And once I get it to a certain point, it'll pop right out. So now I can kind of give a pull and just kind of cut between the meat edge and that crop a little bit. And just kind of keep pulling it. So this is that crop right there. Now I'm going to work on getting the rest of the glands and the esophagus out as well. So it's kind of just getting underneath it, working my fingers back and forth. Okay. Essentially, I'm going to start to remove the guts on the inside here. So what I'll do is I grab a hold of the tail. If I was selling this, I would leave the tail on, but I'm not selling it. I'm for my own method or for my own consumption. I'm just cutting a little bit on both sides. And then I want to keep the entire intestinal tract as one piece. So this is where basically the anus is, this guy right here. So I'm going to make an incision right on top up here. Again, just through that skin. And then this is, I think it's called the cochlea. It's part of the intestine, so I got to be careful so I don't cut through that, because again, I don't want to contaminate anything. If I do, I just got to really wash it up. I'm sorry if I'm in the way here. I just got to cut on this side a little bit, just to get it loose. Okay, it's right there. But this is the intestine right here, or the end of the intestine. At this point, I'll flip the bird over, and you can kind of see there's like an indentation right here at the top. Usually you get real lucky, you cut right there, and usually you'll go right past through that tailbone right there without, like, there's just a joint right there, and I just carefully cut down until I get to that intestine again. Oop, I almost cut it. Let's cut it there a little bit. Okay, so there it is. Okay, so now it's all one piece. All right, so my next step is I know some people go vertically, some people go horizontally. I just take the skin, I'll put there's like a line right down the middle here. You can see that little line right there. I just kind of follow that line. I just kind of cut it straight up. So you're following that little line up to the basically the breast here. For my hand, it's just enough for me to get in there. And sometimes this is the bottom, this is like the pelvic plate right here. I'll just make a little score, a little tiny one like that, and like that. And again, it allows me just to get my hand up in there now. So the next step is to reach my hand up in there. I start on, again, just how I've done it. I start on the left side. I just start loosening. There's a membrane that connects everything so it stays in place in there. So I just start by reaching in 2 or 3 inches and pulling that membrane along both sides. So I just keep going up further and further. So my hand is like way up here, my finger is. I do the same thing on the other side. Again, so now at this point, most of it's loose. So I'm gonna just gently try to grab the whole inside, but just kind of gently pull. So now I'm gonna look to make sure that this esophagus is gonna start to pull through. Sometimes it wants to break off on me. So you can see I'm pulling on that esophagus right now. It's gently pulling through. Come on. There's a little bit of fibrous material up in there that's holding it back. There it is. So all the entrails and everything came out as one piece. So we'll go through and we'll process the liver out. So I saved the hearts, the livers, and the gizzards. So I would take this now that it's free. I just take the gizzard, or this is the heart. I just cut all the fatty stuff off. There's the heart. With the liver, this is the bile duct, so you do not want to cut that at all.
Okay, slow down and say that again.
So this green thing right here is the bile duct, so you gotta be careful of that. So I'll just kind of come up here on the liver a little bit and just kind of gently cut on this side a bit. Same thing, cut on this side a little bit. Okay, so then there's that, and I'll trim off this little extra fat. I don't need that. So there's the liver. Then this is the gizzard. There's a membrane on there. Okay, so there's 2 tubes that are connecting it. One is right here. And I kind of cut the other one already. But that's your gizzard. And then we'll cut this open, and then there's I suppose I could do that real quick to show you what that looks like. Now I'm going to clean this up a little tiny bit more. So this is the inside of the gizzard. So this is all grass and stuff that they've been eating since yesterday. I took their food away. And then there's a liner in here that when you eat this guy, you're going to grab a hold of this liner. It's kind of this yellow guy, and you can see it peel right off. It peels off pretty easy once you get a hold of it. Mosquito. But then I'll peel this liner out. And essentially, that's your gizzard right there. So this is all guts and intestines that we do not, this is waste for us. Okay, that's nothing that we will salvage or use. My next step then will be to clean out the inside. I'll use the hose, I'll spray it all out, you know, make sure all the stuff is in there. The lungs are still in here yet, and maybe I can get these out. The lungs are the hardest, so they're on the back side along the rib cage. So you really have to kind of work your finger down the rib cage to find them. And then I can get, that's the lung, what it looks like. So there's one on each side. So the last step then, I've cleaned the bird out on the inside, and that is to cut the legs off. So there's a joint between the joint, just kind of gently cut down.
The feet. You're cutting the feet off,
oh
not
yeah,
the legs.
Sorry, the feet. And then what we want to do now is get this guy on ice water, so that way he is super chilled in a matter of moments. And we're going to leave him in there until we're ready to process. Yes. All right, so we've gone through the process and we've dispatched all the birds. We've got them to the point where they've been in ice and they're nice and cold. So now we have the options to figure out what we are going to do with the bird. So you can leave them whole, okay? And you know, if you want to bake a chicken or you want to put it on the rotisserie, you know, you can just basically package it all up and freeze it at this point. But we've already done that. So what you can also do is kind of dismember them and have the different parts and package them all up that way. So I always start with the wings. So what I'll do is I look where the joint is. So between the breast meat here and the wing, I'll start cutting it through here and kind of wrap around the top by the neck, and then take it the wing off right there. So right there is the joint. Oops. So there's the wing. Then I always just take the wing tip off right away, and again, it's right between the two joints. Just kind of split the difference and cut the middle. And we'll use these. These are all the extra scraps. If you want to pan over, we'll save all these and we make bone broth out of that. So that will just go in there for that pot. So that wing is done. All right, so I've taken off both wings at this point. And now I'm going to take off the drumstick and thigh. So again, I have the breast up. I'm going to cut between the breast and the drumstick here. I'm going to initially cut it here a little tiny bit. And you can kind of see it separates real nice. I can just cut the skin here a little bit. And then what I'll do is I'm going to follow like along the rib cage here. You can already see I popped it out of the joint. And I just kind of follow straight along like that. So now I have my thigh and my drumstick. And then to separate the two, now you could leave it together, but there's a line like right here. Got air just on the side of the, oops, there it is. You cut right between the two, and now you have your drumstick and your thigh. And do the same, repeat the same thing on the other side. So the next step is to take the breast off the bird, and you can, I could take and cut along, you can see this little fat line here, so I could cut along here. This is where the breast ends and the ribs are. So I cut along here, go up to here, and then trim it along the inside, and I can leave the bone in there. We typically don't eat our white meat that way. So what I will do is I'll just remove the chicken breast from the bones itself. So I'm going to use the center line here. I'm just going to kind of score, follow along the edge here. So all I'm doing, I'm just carefully following along the edge of the bone. And then up here, you have this, right up here at the top is where you have your wishbone. So there's a bone right here. So I just kind of follow down along there. And I'll try to get on the other side. The bone is right at the tip of my knife here. So I just kind of follow to the end of it just to cut around it. So again, I don't want the skin on mine. I'll usually remove that skin. I won't eat the skin when I eat the bird. So I'm just gonna take this off, throw it in my pot there, and then I have the breast from one side. I'm gonna repeat that for the other side. And then the remaining part of the carcass, there's not a lot of meat on there. There's a little bit of meat here and there, but the majority of it then get used to make bone broth.
Well, you guys, that's it for today's video. It has been a long day. We are pooped. We got 28 chickens processed, vacuum sealed, and put in the freezer. And it's always a bittersweet day when a day like this comes, for a lot of different reasons, because we want to raise our animals in the best way possible, organically, on grass, with sun, clean water, no chemicals, no drugs, no fillers, no additives. And then we know where our food is coming from. We know what we fed those little chickens, so we can be we can feel better about what we are putting on our table and feeding our family and friends. So I hope that you learned something. I hope that you understand a little bit more. And I hope that overall you enjoyed watching today's video. I want to thank you for your support. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for liking. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for all of your encouragement that you give us here on this homestead, because we are doing our best to be a little bit more self-sustaining, a little bit more sufficient in putting food on the table and not having to go to the grocery store. So I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I hope to see you again. Bye, friends.